Hey guys, Paloma here and welcome to the Bates House. Today I'm coming at you guys with a junk journal tutorial working on not one but 3 creepy junk journals featuring our favorite immortal family in these holographic images. If you're totally into the elegant gore of the Halloween spirit, then stick around and we will get started. When I begin creating a journal, I like to sit and surround myself in all my ephemera and paper pads, pulling all the pieces that inspire my creative image in my mind. The focal point of these journals will be, of course, the gruesomely gorgeous holographic images. So I'm starting by taking a few measurements, trying to decide if I want to remove the frame, keep the frame, and decide on the size of cover that I'll need. For these journals, I decide to keep and modify the frame to keep them uniform to reflect the fact that they are a family, but embrace the different styles that each character inspires. I am using one of my favorite craft room scraps, which is a game board from vintage games that I buy for pennies on the retail dollar while thrifting. I remove the game pieces for vintage ephemera and I keep the boards because they make a great durable quality base for sturdy book covers. For these journals, I decided that 10 inches long by 8 inches high would give us enough space for journaling on each sheet, but be narrow enough to keep an elegant look to them. Starting with our spine and working our way out, I'm simply taking a ruler to cut the fold line of my 2-inch spine. I'm not cutting all the way through because I want the cover to stay together. I'm just cutting through a few layers to help fold along the spine lines by using a ruler and a blade. Next, we're taking a large sheet of decorative paper and moving into our cover design. We're going to leave a border around the cover base because we want to fold and glue the paper over to the inside and be able to cover that with our inner cover sheet. I'm using Eileen's tacky glue paired with a wet paintbrush to spread the adhesive all over the backside of our cover base. Once you have your base down where you want it, make sure you press firmly, adhering the paper to the cover as best as you can. I like to fold my cover and pull the crease together to form a clean line along the spine. It also creates elasticity so when you fold the book, the paper doesn't rip along the spine lines. Next, we're going to cut, fold, and adhere the border flaps onto the inside border of your book. Trim where needed to ensure that you reduce any bulkiness to your edges, and apply a generous amount of glue. Again, I use a wet brush to moisten and combine the fibers between the book cover and the paper. I feel like when the adhesive dries, those fibers will kind of intertwine and dry together, creating a more structured cover piece. I also make sure to apply a generous amount of glue, not only on the underside of the paper, but on top of the paper as well. Again, I feel like it just pulls everything together since both materials are a paper product. Next, we will cut down our inside cover sheet. I do not want my inside cover to extend the full size of the full cover, so I will cut it down a little bit smaller so the front image will show around the inside border. Once you have your piece cut, measure and fold your spine. This will help your inside spine fold be a lot more solid and clean. Now, it's not absolutely mandatory because we're going to be covering the inside spine with some decorative washi tape, but it just helps whenever we go back to cover it to have a lot less bulkiness on the inside of the spine. Once you've done all that, go ahead and apply your adhesive. Again, I'm using a wet paintbrush and Eileen's tacky glue for this part. Now again, I want the fibers to blend and dry together, so I am using a scraper to blend them and press firmly, making sure not to miss any area. Now, as strange as it may sound, this is where the journals began creating the characters for me. I felt like the lady in the image was in mourning, so I wanted to pair her with the black journal cover. Now I trimmed down the image the same way for all three journals because again I wanted them to be a set but different in their own way. Since I trimmed her down, I'm going to stain the edges black to cover up that bright white border. Then I'm going to remove some of the backing to reduce the bulkiness and try not to damage the image and adhere it to the front cover. Again, be generous with your adhesive. Once I adhere it where I want it, which is kind of centered on the front cover, I'm going to use paper clips to hold it in place and apply pressure so that adhesive can kind of stick to the paper. Now using Fabri-Tac glue, it bonds with a lot of different things. I'm going to adhere some metal trimmings around the frame. Again, I'm doing this same step for all three journals. I love Fabri-Tac, but it's not cheap. I have it linked down below for you guys if you want to check it out, as well as my work mat and other supplies that I use regularly down below for you guys. Now the glue tends to get tacky fast, so I like to clean up the glue before it dries. So I'll use something like a toothpick or a metal pointy needle and I'll just roll and pull some of that adhesive off of the places where I don't want it. I'm just going to move the large paper clips to hold the metal pieces in place and add some clamps on the corners and set her aside to dry. After several hours, we have 3 covers. Now we can go ahead and begin building the signatures. Each book is going to have 4 signatures. I'm going to visibly divide up each signature by using coordinated black heavy cardstock. I am cutting each one 8 by 8. We're going to be folding each one in half to make the pages for our book, which is 4 inches on each side. Remember, always keep your scraps because you can turn these into punches, you can use them for ephemera, you can use them for several things, especially when they're nice wide strips. Now for me, personally, a nice clean fold is very important for keeping all of your pages aligned because I actually like my pages to be very straight and even along the outside of the book. So all we're doing now is taking all of our filler paper for our signatures and we're going to be folding them to be no wider than the 4 inches on each side. I like to make sure that I use a ruler to keep my fold line straight and use the scraper for creasing. You're going to do this with every single sheet that you're going to have going into your signatures. So this is going to take quite a while and it's going to be the part where I just fast forward it to move fairly quickly because there's a lot of folding. Now that we have all of our pieces cut and folded, we can begin creating our different signature stacks. So I like to take all of the pages and pieces that I've cut and begin separating them into each signature. The reason I like to do this is because I don't want any to be too repetitive. Now you can only see 3 on the screen, but there's actually 4. There's another one off to the side. Looking at all the supplies, I kind of thought it was a good time to share some pricing information with you guys. So when it comes to paper pads, I don't pay more than $5 for a paper pad because I get them on sale at Michael's. Also, if I find things at Tuesday Morning, I will not pay more than $6 to $7 for a really good, maybe vellum vintage paper pad. My cutting board is the Cricut cutting board, and I got it from Tuesday Morning for $3.99, I believe, which was an awesome score because it coordinates so well with my aesthetics here. Now we're going to move on to the next part, which is creating the spine for our books. This is going to be layered on the inside of the book. I took some of the scrap cardboard from the rest of the game board and I cut one down to size, and I made sure that I measured enough space for my 4 signatures to go onto straight and evenly. Then I'm going to take 2 other pieces because there are 3 books, so I need 3 spines, and I'm going to measure off of the first one that I took very detailed measurements on. I want to make sure that each book is as similar and as straight as possible. So at this point, I taped it down with washi to make sure that I held everything in place so I can get nice clean lines and try to get everything as straight as possible. Now the exterior spine of my book was 2 inches, so I actually cut the interior spine pieces, which are these here, down to 1 3/4 of an inch. That way it could fit nicely inside the spine of the book but not keep the book from closing properly. Now the measurements for the holes will vary depending on your signatures and how wide they are or how many you have. I'm simply taking my punch tool that I got from King Dollar in a really good set of a variety of punch tools, and I'm punching holes through the cardboard. Now, since this is going to be the interior spine of the book, that means that we are going to be stitching our signatures to this spine. Now I'm going to play with the combination of pages by alternating the different sizes and prints. This is going to be the final layout of your book. Once you have your book the way you want it, you can go ahead and paper clip them together and make any necessary trimmings. Now I start trimming by cleaning the edges, but I will eventually be trimming it down more once I see how much I need to trim after we add the thicker spine to the inside of the book. Once we've put our signatures together, we can make a hole punch guide using a piece of the game box. I like to use something flexible yet durable enough to be able to withstand punching multiple holes. This is going to be a piece that we are going to cut to the size of the length of the book. Then we are going to use the spine that we created our stencil on and punch the holes where they're going to need to be in that cardboard piece. We're going to use this cardboard piece to put into each signature as we punch the holes through the entire booklet. That's why we need it to be the same for every single signature. Now that we have created our spine and have our stencil, we can set that aside and begin decorating our spine. This is going to be the inside layer of the spine that we are going to stitch our signatures to. The reason I'm doing it like this is because I don't want to have the stitching go through the spine of the book to the outside of the book, because I actually want to dress it up with some gems and a chain. So I want the outside of the spine to be flat and clean. So I'm just going to take some coordinating washi that I've already layered over the inside of the spine and adhered down. And I did this for all 3 books, and I'm going to coordinate it to the additional spine piece by taking the same washi and just gluing it all on. You can never have too much glue in these projects. Once you have it adhered, you can set it aside and let it dry, use a blow dryer to dry it, or use a heat gun to dry it. I set it inside the booklet and you can kind of get an idea of what I'm going for. Just make sure that before you make anything final that you go through and add any touches that need to be done, such as what I'm doing, which is adding some additional glue to the washi to keep those corners down. Now we have our book and our inside spine. I'm going to take the inside spine and put it into the book and add one of the signatures to see about how much I need to trim off of each signature. I decided to trim off about 1/4 of an inch from each signature to ensure that the book pages don't hang out of the book. I did the same step for all 12 signatures for all 3 books. And as we put them into the book, you can kind of see what I'm going for. And that is why I care so much about whether or not they look even. Now that we have that in place, we can go ahead and begin finalizing our book. So after I decorated the inside spine, I'm going to repunch the holes through the new washi that I layered on top. Again, we're going to be using this to stitch our signatures onto. Next, I'm going to take a large needle and some thread and begin threading my signature into the spine. When you're threading your signature, you want to make sure that you hold it together with some clamps or some paper clips just to help with shifting as you stitch your signature onto the spine. Once you're done stitching your signature to the spine, you're going to tie a knot on the inside of your signature. Now let's take a closer look at how I stitch my signature onto the spine. We have 4 holes in our signature spine. We're going to start on the center top hole, putting your needle through the inside of the signature. Make sure you hold the string so that it doesn't come all the way through. Once you pull your needle through the outside, then you're going to go back in and loop it through that same first hole. Be sure not to stitch through your string. You're going to do the same thing, working your way down and then back up to the center left side. Once you get it all the way back up, you're going to tighten all of your threads and make a knot on the center of your signature. This will hold your signature in place. Now that we have our signatures stitched to the inside spine, we're going to take that and adhere it to the inside of the actual book. Using a combination of the Fabri-Tac glue and the Eileen's tacky glue, I'm adding a generous amount of adhesive on the spine, inside, and on the inside of the book. Next, I'm going to take some elastic band and tie this together. The reason I'm doing this is because I want the inside of the book to be putting pressure on the inside spine so that all of it stays together. I'm also going to add some large paper clips in between the signatures to ensure that it's held down tightly on the edges. Then we're just going to set that aside and let that dry overnight. And you're going to repeat the same process for all 3 books. Next is my favorite part. We get to add some age using some inks on each one of these book covers. So I took basically the same color combination using 4 ink pads that include the Tim Holtz Distress Oxides in Vintage Photo and Ground Espresso, Colorworks Pigment Inks in gold, and then the Ranger dye ink pad in Raven, which is the black. And I just go around all the edges and corners and make sure that I add just a bunch of different layers to each cover. So far, I'm getting total sibling vibes with each one of these characters. I want you guys to meet Angelo. He is the brother of the trio. He was a very elegant, educated, and intelligent chemist that traveled the world, participating in well-intentioned but questionable experiments. Very intrigued by the human body. Next, we have Eleanor, a very private, powerful woman who kept her family close and her enemies closer. In mourning the loss of her children, tragedy struck and she had to live out her newfound immortal existence, never seeing her husband again. Next, we have Rose, the youngest of the 3 siblings. Engaged at a young age, she carries with her pictures of the 2 men she knew and loved the most in her normal living days, her father and her fiancé, tortured by the fact that she can no longer see them or be near them for fear of endangering their lives. Now, just as in all the tales of immortal beings, they too have had many years to accumulate knowledge and wealth. But these jewels and gems are not your normal treasures to be traded at the local barter shops. These hold the most powerful magic that keep their immortality intact. Without them, they would die. Not being able to part completely from those they love the most, at least they can watch them live on from a torturous distance, forever holding their own fates in their own hands, hiding in plain sight. Storytime aside, we are going to begin creating bookmarks for each one of the books. Every holiday season, I make sure to go through clearance aisles and see what material I can find for pennies on the dollar, and this Halloween ribbon was one of the greatest packs ever for a few cents. I'm going to be pairing the bookmark ribbon with some brads that have numbers on them, and I selected the numbers 31, 13, and 31 for the 3 books. What we're going to do is take our strip of ribbon and we're going to punch 2 holes in the bottom of the ribbon. The top hole is going to be to put the brad through, and then we're going to fold up the end of the ribbon back onto the back of the brad. Use the brad to hold it together so that the end of the ribbon or the bookmark is not frayed. Then we are going to kind of measure the length that we need for the bookmark and cut 3 strips to size. That's going to be the ribbon pieces for the other 2 books. Now that we have created the bookmark, we can go ahead and begin piecing together our gems and jewels. So I always like to find different jewelry pieces or different craft pieces that go on clearance and pair them together to create whatever it is that I want. So I'm using the Fabri-Tac glue and taking these blank medallion or metal frame pieces and adding some embellishment to them. For the girls, I have these skeleton cameo embellishments, and then for the gentleman, I have a topazy stone, which is very fitting because I feel like topaz goes with the Scorpio season, and he feels like a Scorpio to me, very masculine and kind of dark in nature. I'm taking the end of each one of the ribbons, adding a glob of the Fabri-Tac, and I'm adhering that to the center top of the book. I'm going to be hiding that end with the embellishment so we don't have to worry about it being too pretty, but you do want to make sure that it's straight and center. Next, I'm taking some chains from old jewelry and pieces that I've kind of just ripped apart and kept on hand, and I'm going to be adding a chain to each one of the bottoms of the medallions. Using tweezers, like I always do with jewelry, I'm just opening and pinching the chain to add it to the bottom of the medallion ring. Now the good thing is that these little medallions actually come with the ring because they're supposed to be for jewelry, so I don't have to worry about trying to find a way to attach it. At the bottom of each one of these chains, I'm going to add a ring. I feel like these could have been their baby rings when they were born. You know how a lot of people like to symbolize birth of a new child with jewelry, and a lot of them will get either a bracelet or a little nameplate or a baby ring. I feel like this pretty much symbolizes that, to kind of tie together the fact that they are a family. We're going to take each one of these medallion chains and adhere it to the book that it coordinates with. You want to make sure that it's centered, has a lot of adhesive because you don't want it to go anywhere. It's also going to serve double duty, holding our bookmarks in place as well. Next, to tie in their human birth with their human death, I'm going to take some tiny silver little skull heads and adhere them into the center of each ring. I'm just going to do this by taking the Fabri-Tac. It is a permanent adhesive, and I'm going to add a dollop of that in the center where the skulls are going to go. I'm going to make sure to put quite a bit because the ring is also going to sit in that adhesive, so all of it is going to be glued down to the bottom of the center of the book. Now, one thing to remember is we do care about quality because we're going for elegant here. So you want to make sure that as you're pulling and securing different pieces on, go back and make sure that your other pieces are still in place because the glue has not completely dried and things will be shifting around and you don't want things off center. So just be checking as you're trying to finalize your look. Now, what's a gory theme without a little blood? This is one of my favorite things to use in these creepy Halloween layouts. Red food coloring. All you're going to do is hold it up high and let one drop fall to the surface of your book. You're going to stand over it and give a really hard puff. When you do that, it's going to give a splatter look to your red food coloring, making it look like blood. That is so cool, and it's one of my favorite touches to add to these gory pieces. Well, guys, that is pretty much it for this Halloween themed junk journal tutorial. I do hope that you guys enjoyed. I hope I was able to share something new with you that you can apply to your creepy projects coming up for the month of October. If you did enjoy this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below, let me know what your favorite season is to create junk journals for. These will be going up in my Etsy shop, and that will be linked down below for you guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell on your way out to be notified of all the new videos whenever I do post. You can follow me on my social medias on Instagram and my Facebook group at The Bates House. And for now, guys, that's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!